Hello, if you're logging in. Hi, Becca. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. If you're logging in, go ahead and tap in the chat so I can see who's here. Hi, Jocelyn. So as you're logging in, I'll just tell you about, I had a live book launch. I was hosted at a local winery called Top Hat Winery, and it had a really great turnout. Just really fun, did some readings, blew out a candles for Heresy's first birthday, which ended up being hilarious because I bought these dynamite candles just because I saw them and thought they fit the theme of the book fairly well. It even had like a tiny little bomb, it's like a boom on it. And I was like, oh, that works perfectly for the book, so I'll get that in the cake. And turns out they were trick candles. So I totally tricked myself and kept blowing them out, and they kept turning them back out on. So I finally had to get like a little, like, get my water bottle that I had and leave like this much in it and then drop the candles in it so that they would stop lighting on fire. It was pretty great. It was hilarious. So yeah, we had some cake and did some readings, and it was just an absolute blast. And we're going to do a lot of the same things tonight. Once more people get here, we'll do some readings, and I'll talk about the giveaways that we're going to have and give you the information on that. And it's just gonna be a good night. Ooh, sorry about the yawning. It's been a busy, busy day, but very fun. So Becca, have you gotten to order a book, or are you still needing a book, or are you going to borrow it from Aj? Hi, Jamie. I'm glad you can make it. It's okay, Jocelyn. COVID sucks, but I understand. Hopefully, everything will come back negative and it'll be fine. Jocelyn. Hi, Derek. Hi, Jim. Now everyone's logging on. Yeah, Becca got her own copy today, and but if you decide you want one of your own, I still have copies that I can sign available. I still have about 14 copies, so I sold a ton today, so that was really great. And yeah, Derek, it's an absolutely great day. It went really, really well. I've had a blast. You missed I tricked myself with my own cake story today. And Jim, that's totally okay. I totally understand. I have to apologize. I completely, with the launch and everything, completely forgot to put your book in the mail today. But I will send it out as soon as I can. Hopefully tomorrow, but I'm not sure if they're open tomorrow. So I'll look, and if not, I'll send it out first thing Monday morning. Yeah. Yes. No. Becca, that was really great news. Yeah, it was we had quite a good turnout. I didn't ever get the chance to count, but we had quite a few people in. Most of them were people I knew, but there were quite a few actually who had stopped in that had heard about the events in other ways and come to get a book. So I'm just excited to hear what everyone thinks. I'm already getting some really good reviews. I've already had lots of good reviews on Goodreads because they're the only ones who actually allow you to put reviews before it's out. But I've had 3 reviews on Amazon so far since it's been out, and all of them are 5 stars, and I'm super excited and just love hearing that, not just that my book is being successful, but that it's actually like reaching people and that they're seeing the themes in the book that I really want them to see. And it's making people think, and that's more than I could ever ask for at the book. Oh, by the way, we have a visitor with us tonight. This is my dog, River Song. She has to be on my lap at all times, and yes, she's covered in a baby blanket because she's a baby. So if you see her head pop up every now and again, that's totally normal. It's not an alien. Alrighty, who wants to hear a reading? I'm going to assume that the silence in the chat is a yes. Yeah, okay, Derek said so. All right, so we're going to start in chapter 1. There's a copy of the book, and there's part 1, you guys, and I'll read the quote. It says, "When a man is denied the right to live the life he believes in, he has no choice but become an outlaw." Nelson Mandela. 1. Rule number 1, survive, no matter the cost. As the driverless car came to a halt, Shiloh Haven played her rules over in her head once more, and checked her uniform for the 12th time. Still perfect. She glanced back up, but the opaque car windows hid her location. She'd spent the long car ride from the Haven to the Twin Cities in darkness. Her only company had been her racing heartbeat. When the car door jerked open, the burst of light was blinding. A thin woman stood on the sidewalk. She wore the same white blouse, high-necked and sleeveless for summer, and dark trousers as Shiloh, like the Arcadian Codex demanded. "Out," the attendant ordered. Shiloh climbed out of the car and onto freshly poured concrete, addressing on what must have been a wounded, broken street. Before her, a massive building cast her in its long shadow. Behind her, skyscrapers interrupted blue skies. Most of the tall buildings were dark and rusted with disrepair, reminders of the civil wars that once raged here. The attendant seized Shiloh's wrist. Every muscle coiled like a snake, but Shiloh inhaled through her teeth, forcing herself not to whip back. Breathe in, breathe out. The attendant turned Shiloh's hand over and scanned the table over her wrist. The spider web marks of Shiloh's identification momentarily glowed blue. Her face appeared above the tablet in a hologram, information spinning around it. Haven, Shiloh? Shiloh didn't miss the disdain hidden beneath required hospitality, but she was used to it. Yes? Are there any other representatives from the attendant paused. Family? Shiloh swallowed the bitter taste in her mouth. She could almost hear Val's hiss when Mother had chosen her to be the representative for the Haven girls. Of course, Star Child, you always make us proud. No, just me. Follow me. The attendant strode through a set of double doors. 2 protectors of the peace stood on either side of the entrance, their blue uniforms almost as bright as the early summer sky. Shiloh's steps quickened as she paused them, their gaze feeling like pinpricks on her skin. The attendant led her through a long hallway where lined windows and the doors allowed glances into a dusty room with abandoned tables and chairs. What had this place been? A school? The ghost of an object long gone marked one of the walls. A cross. This had been a church, back when there was such a thing, before Arcadia existed. The attendant stopped before a door where another protector stood and ushered Shiloh inside. "Wait here." She closed the door, and the clack of her footsteps carried her away. A scattering of families dressed in identical uniforms to Shiloh's own sat in clusters of chairs. Mismatched paint smeared one wall. What message of heresy had been painted there? Maybe the song lyrics Hope used to sing back when Val, Hope, and Shiloh had been little girls curled together in bed for warmth and comfort. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound. Shiloh dug her fingernails into her palm. I don't remember. I don't remember. That was rule number 2 of a Haven girl. We don't remember. Shiloh picked a chair in a corner far from everyone. But an elderly woman approached her anyway, sitting beside her and smiling graciously. Here on your own, dear? Yes. The woman waited, but Shiloh didn't offer an explanation. I'm Evelyn Olson. She stretched out a hand. Shiloh shook it, but released quickly. And you are? Shiloh. Nice to meet you. Who are you here for? Shiloh hesitated. What word described 2 little girls, strangers, who'd lost everything and showed up on an unforgiving doorstep on the same day? Shiloh was only 6 the day she'd been taken to the Haven, but the memory was branded in her brain like a searing iron. The smell of smoke in the social worker's car. The ache of Shiloh's throat as she begged for her mommy and daddy. The softness of Hope's touch when she took Shiloh's trembling hand. That day, they'd formed a pact. We're in this together. Until 2 years ago, when the elite had arrested Hope and Shiloh was left alone. Honey, Evelyn pressed, who are you here for? My sister, Shiloh said at last. That was what Mother called the Haven girls, and Shiloh supposed Mother was right about this alone. They were all each other had. Why Shiloh had been chosen to come. That's so wonderful, dear. We're here for my son. Evelyn nodded at her family, an elderly man and an adult daughter. He's been in a prison camp for 12 years. I can't. His voice broke. She cleared her throat again and smiled broadly. But isn't it wonderful? The United Council hosting the cleansing each year and giving us the opportunity to be reunited, for him to be forgiven? Yes, Shiloh's words felt robotic. How great is the council? Evelyn paused. Dear, if you don't mind me asking, where are your parents? Shouldn't they be here with you? The long, familiar knife twisted in Shiloh's chest. I don't remember. But memories were just under the surface, flashes of screams and fears and gunshots. Dead, Shiloh almost said, but she took a deep breath. I'm a Haven. Evelyn stiffened. Oh, the council is indeed generous, then. Indeed. Evelyn excused herself to rejoin her family, retreating quickly, like Shiloh knew she would. People always did. Heresy is contagious, didn't you know? Even though Evelyn's own son had committed heresy, Havens were still far worse, inherently bad. They were the children of heretics, raised in heresy. After their parents' deaths or arrest, they were placed in a Haven. There, they were stripped of their former names and given the surname Haven. There, any small sign of heresy invoked severe punishment, with canes and slaps and repentant closets. There, they lived by certain rules, and none more important than survive, no matter the cost. Shiloh had worked so hard to survive. She'd played the game, obeyed the rules, perfected the mask of good girl so well she'd earned a place on an engineering track at school. Most Haven struggled to prove that, despite their parents, they were worthy citizens, so they were stuck on the laborer track. All tracks were supposed to be equal, but everyone knew to be a laborer for Arcadia was to be a slave. But Shiloh had ensured her survival. She might even have a decent life. But you, Hope, you had to go and break all the rules. Shiloh could still remember the moment she knew the end was coming. Hope, standing with the worn Bible pages in her hand. Burn them, Shiloh had pleaded. But Hope, unable to surrender the heresy of her parents, didn't. And so the pages had been found, and she'd lost hope. And even 2 years later, that could still set Shiloh's skin on fire. Now, the cleansing promised that Hope had a chance to be set free. Yet, Shiloh couldn't bring herself to feel excited. The Arcadian government had taken everyone she loved. She couldn't quite bring herself to believe that they would ever give someone back. End scene. Hi, Alyssa. Glad to meet it. I'm glad you made it. And here comes the second puppy dog. All right, guys. Now that there's more of you here, let me talk about the giveaways that are happening tonight. Hi, Aj. I'm glad you still enjoyed it, considering this is the second time you've heard it today. Aw, your daughters are watching with you. That's so cool, Jamie. They'll guess that you'll have to surrender your Kindle and let them read it. So let me tell you guys about the giveaway. So I'll let you know what I'm giving away. So the first prize is a $15 gift card to Barnes & Noble, along with, I hope you guys can see it, had t-shirts made for swag from Heresy. It says Heretic on it. So the first prize is you'll get both of those, and then I'm also giving away to two other winners. I'm giving away a shirt. So the way to do this is I will drop a link in the chat, and you can go there and fill out that form, and I will draw the names from that. So here we go. All right, so you can fill that out. Yeah, fingers crossed. And I hope you guys love the t-shirts because they're super comfortable and they're pretty cool, if I do say so myself. But I created them, so I may be a little biased. Who has any questions for me? If no one has any questions, I guess I'll just tell you a little bit about my journey to get here. The story of Heresy started about when I was 15 with the main character, Shiloh Sanders, as she was called then. So the main character is Shiloh Haven. She was a character, and she was an original character in Harry Potter fan fiction. And you're gonna all laugh, but I wrote a fan fiction about Snape's daughter, and she was originally Snape's daughter. So she was just this super kind of withdrawn, intellectual character. She was quite a bit younger than how old she is in Heresy, and I just completely fell in love with her, and then created a whole other cast of characters. Val and Stefani and Jake and Nicolette all came from this group of characters that I developed around her as her friends. And when I decided I really wanted to focus on original fiction, I wanted to do something like that. And I'd also dubbed her friends the Heretics, so I knew that I wanted to do something about heresy. And I knew that in the fan fiction I wrote, heresy had to do with, or the heretics had to do with kind of going against the grain, or going against people in the world will always tell you to be this exact thing. And if you're not that, you're not acceptable, and you're not acceptable, and you're not going to be allowed in this society without having trouble. And so I ran with that idea. And it really took me a long time to get where I wanted that story to be. I didn't really have a clear direction, and it took me a while to figure out how that theme. And I think a lot of it had to do with, like, I didn't know myself what it really meant to learn how to be you, even when, that doesn't necessarily fit into the world that you grew up in. So we all feel like we don't belong. and we all sometimes are tempted to fit ourselves into this place of belonging, even if that's not who we are. And so developing the world, when I came back to writing, I took a really long break because I got my doctorate and started a nursing career and did all these things. And I finally came back last year after I had a hip surgery and suddenly had all this time on my hands. And I was like, well, what do I want to do with it? Well, I kind of just want to write and see what happened. And when I developed the world this time, it was really super clear to me. Like, what does it look like? What's bothers me about the world, about what are the things that we don't accept. You know, we always have religions fighting against other religions. We have Christians putting down people from the LGBTQ community. We have people putting down Christians because they assume, sometimes rightfully so, that they can be this very narrow-minded bunch. And what would it look like if we fought against that? If we had people who dared to be different, but more importantly, dared to radically accept one another. And so that's where this whole social problem of Arcadia comes from, is that thing that I've struggled with for so long is how do we survive in a world that's telling us we have to be this way? Is there a different way that we can do that? And if so, how? So that's really where it came across, with having these characters for so long and then having this real growth and passion that of this problem within me. And it was a real cathartic journey. And even looking back at some of the things, like there's this whole theme of good girl, being a good girl in the first book, and going through that, and I didn't even realize when I was writing it how much that impacted me, or just as girls were told to be polite and kind and everything like that, and how sometimes that can be very toxic. And watching the characters resolve some of that within themselves, it was very much a cathartic experience. So that's where I got here. I wrote it. I had hip surgery. I started writing it. I wrote the rough draft in 2 weeks, and then looked out for beta readers. Got a lot of good feedback. Edited and edited and edited again, until I finally had the product I was. At a certain point, Heresy had to go through a lot of cutting, because at a certain point, Heresy was 150,000 words, and it's now sitting at about 96,000. So there was a lot of cutting that had to happen, including scenes that I loved and wish were still in there, but didn't do much for the plot. So maybe one day I'll drop some of those scenes or put some more stuff in there that I wish that I could have put in there, and as little sneak peeks for fans who, but that's a future project. Alyssa, is there another book coming? Yes, there is. So Heresy, the Heretic Saga, is set out and written out to be 4 books. So book 2 is tentatively set to come out in May of 2021. I am currently about halfway through the rough draft, hopefully halfway through, but it may end up, I suspect that it'll probably do what Heresy did and be very, very long and have to be narrowed down a little bit. But I'm sorry if you hear whining in the background. That's my dog. He's got really bad allergies, and he keeps scratching on the couch. So it's a problem. Pray for him. He needs it. He's got issues. Thoughts and prayers, Reverend. Thoughts and prayers. But anyways, so book 2, and if you haven't, make sure you follow me on Instagram, because we'll be posting teasers, and I'll drop the title and do another cover reveal once that's ready to be revealed. So make sure you do that, because I'll be working on some of that as well. What other questions do you guys have? You didn't know that you were going to get shows from the doggies. This is why my bio says that I have 3 ridiculous dogs. I'm kind of surprised that the 3rd one isn't over here, actually. I'm glad you're enjoying them. Will I use a publisher next time? No. I will remain independent for this series. The only way that I would take would join up with the publishers that came with to me for an offer, but I don't plan to solicit, mainly because when you're independently published, if you've already published one book in the series, it's really difficult to then go traditional with any later books, unless, like I said, they approach you. And I would have to have a little bit, even if they approached me, I would have to have a little bit of freedom of where the series goes, because that was part of my decision to go independent, is I wanted to be able to write the story the way I wanted it written. Because I think it is a really good story, and I've, based on the feedback I have, I think that's probably pretty accurate, and I don't want to have to radically change it in order to fit what a publisher wants exactly. That doesn't mean that I won't later on choose for other series choose to traditionally publish, because that's definitely a consideration I might do for books that I think would fit that world a little bit better, or that isn't as closely knit to my heart. Heresy is very, as I've explained, it's been with me a really long time, and this story that I want to tell is very important, because I think, the message is really important, especially for people in that young adult age, learning to be yourself. Yeah, great question. I'm turning into teacher mode now, because I have to tell you that you asked a great question. What other questions do you guys have? Or would you like me to read the next scene in chapter 1? Alrighty, I don't see any other questions, so I'll just read the next scene. Go lay down. Go lay down. Okay. So the next scene will introduce the next character, and you'll have met the two main characters of the series. Jacob Kedrick Osgood, where in Arcadia's great lands have you been? The great and mighty counselor Samuel Osgood's voice ricocheted around the hotel room and drove into Jake's brain like an ice pick. Well, frock. Clearly Jake was in deep trouble and should tread carefully. But then he never really did what he should do. Shh, Dad. Jake pressed his palm to his temple. Not so loud. Not so loud? My son disappears all night before my turn to host the cleansing, and you say not so loud? Do you know how many protectors I had looking for you last night? Jake flopped down on the couch and smiled crookedly. Probably too few of the good ones. Dad took a step toward Jake threateningly. Ha! What would his father do, really? Ground him to his room? Maybe. But then tomorrow, Dad would be halfway around the globe. Mom would have her own charity engagement, and nothing would ever be enforced. Relax, Dad. I'm here now, Jake said. We were supposed to leave for the event 30 minutes ago. What? Jake glanced at the clock on the wall. Peace and harmony. He could have sworn he'd left the college dorm in time, disentangling from around the girl. What was her name again? And leaving behind the other passed-out college kids without saying goodbye. Last night, a friend who'd recently graduated from their school invited Jake to a college party. How could Jake say no? College parties were the best. Everyone drank and made merry like the fun ended after graduation, which it did. It would be all do your duty for Arcadia, work, marry the spouse chosen for you, and have kids to repopulate the nation. Nightmare, really. Jake gave Dad his best mock sheepish look and lifted his palms. Whoops. Dad's face contorted in rage. Everyone told Jake he looked just like Dad. Literally everyone. Friends, politicians, media, girls doing really awkward moments. Same brown hair, brown eyes, and handsome face that seemed hand-designed for the nation's leader. But Jake sure hoped he didn't look like this when he was angry. It wasn't a great look. Whoops, Dad snapped. Is that all you have to say? It's not like they can start the frocking event without you. Dad lifted a stern finger. Watch your mouth. Jake rolled his eyes. The codex specifically forbid the cuss words that existed pre-sundering. So, of course, teenagers had invented new ones, not forbidden, but certainly frowned upon. Dad massaged his fingers into his temple. Why do you always do this? Because I'm sick of being a puppet in your show. Because I'm tired of your lies and all the people you've hurt. Because when I tried to be good, it was never enough anyway. Jake swallowed and looked away. Jake, are you listening to me? Dad asked. Jake forced a smile. Not a word. Dad growled in frustration just as Jake's mother stepped from the bathroom. Mom wore the traditional Acadian outfit, long trousers and a shirt, hers red instead of white to mark her status. Still, with her blonde hair twisted up and her chin lifted high, she made it look elegant. Enough, she said firmly. People were here. She nodded toward the door, where bodyguards and Hazel, Dad's assistant, had gone when they'd been dismissed from the room. No doubt Hazel was eavesdropping. She always was. Mom fixed Jake with that look. The don't try with me, boy look. Jake, get in the shower. You have 10 minutes. Jake's smile fell as he stood. Okay, Mom. She caught her arm as he passed. The look she gave him made Jake's gut twist into a bow tie. Dad had no power to make him feel guilty, maybe because Dad was practically a stranger to him, or perhaps because Dad's sins could cover a lifetime of Jake's own. But Mom was a different story. Despite her frequent travel, Jake knew he'd always been her priority. Don't you ever do that again, Mom said, even though Jake had done it before, and they both knew he would do it again. I was worried about you. Mom, it's the safest nation in the world. What's there to be worried about? Her eyes narrowed. Jake winced. I'm sorry. She released his arm. 10 minutes. Jake was ready with time to spare. The smell of alcohol and perfume scrubbed from his body, his hair combed, 2 aspirins swallowed, and his pressed clothes tucked and smooth in the right places. But his bloodshot eyes and the pounding headache were there to stay. The bodyguards ushered them into the awaiting car, then followed behind in their own. Cool silence fueled the short car ride. Dad buttoned and straightened his jacket at least 12,000 times, and Mom stared out the window. Once she caught Jake's eyes in the reflection and gave a peace offering of a smile, the let's please just get through this type of smile. A sudden flood of people and orb-like hovering cameras notified Jake that they had arrived. The cleansing was mandatory viewing all across Arcadia, from the western border to Minnesota as far south as Missouri and to the coast of Maine. But first it had to be recorded, edited, and approved by United Council's media team. It was important to show the right image, even if it was a lie. Here, Mom said, handing him a pair of sunglasses. Your eyes are still red. Dad grunted and swung the door open. As the camera hit him, his face broke into a perfect wide smile. He waved as he exited the car. Jake groaned. It's showtime. In Arcadia, everyone had their roles to play, and this was his, whether he wanted it or not. Being the son of a counselor, he could get away with so many things, but in the end, Jake, too, still moved to the pull of the puppet strings. There were no choices in Arcadia. Not if you wanted to live. I hate this place. Jake straightened his collar, slipped on the sunglasses, and pasted on a smile as he exited the car. Time to dance, puppet, dance. End of scene 2. Jamie. I'm starting to say frock now, too. I guess it's more appropriate. There are worse things that you could be saying. I'll start a trend. That would be fun. What a dream come true. Do you guys have any questions? My favorite, favorite is In Sphere. Yes, that one's a good one. So for those of you here, I have a few. Alyssa and Jamie and Audrey were all a part of my advanced review copy team. So they got to read the book in advance. So they've all 3 of them have read the book already. So that's why she's making references to the book. And I can't thank them enough because just hearing their feedback gave me so much more confidence going into today and the release of the book, and just hoping that it continues to get out there and people continue to like it. So thanks, guys. Yeah, Jamie, no spoilers. I also have for you, I handed them out at the live party. I also have a ton more of bookmarks. If you like them, you can reach out to me on social media or on Facebook, wherever we're friends, and let me know that you want one, and I will send them to you for free. If you want extra to hand out to friends, I'm definitely all game. River Song, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. And River Song's right there. Spoilers. So anyway, it's always hard doing these live things because you guys aren't right in front of me, so I don't know like your faces. I don't know if you're staring off in space or what I can do. At least in Zoom. Do I have a website for my swag? I don't yet. I really should have one. Because these t-shirts, if you don't win one, are available to sell. I will be selling them. I did buy plenty of them. So if you're interested, they're $15 for sizes small to large. And for sizes XL to 3XL, which I have, they're $60. And then, of course, if I have to ship it, they'll be like a few dollars in shipping. So yeah, just reach out to me. That's kind of been the way that I've been doing it. Same way, if you would like a signed copy, I still have enough to send out to people. So if you want a signed copy, you can just reach out to me and I would be happy to get you a signed copy. Right now, like I said, I've just been doing it on my own, mainly because I don't want to pay the extra money that it would be to set up a website that I'm actually capable of taking payments, because it's more than I'm already paying for my website, and it's a lot more than it's quite a bit more already to add on to the paying thing. I tried to do it once, it got all the way through, and then like, oh, sorry, you can't do it. Google sites. Do you have a secret that I don't know about, Audrey? I'm always open to learning things. All right, Audrey. Aj has got me. So I may set up an online store and see if I could get it. That would definitely make my life a lot easier. But yeah, they will eventually, they are available. And until I get a store set up, you can just reach out and I will send one. Awesome. I can do that. I will pull them for you. Oh, and if you buy, I had a deal that if you buy a signed copy and a t-shirt, that you get it for, instead of, it would normally be like 30 altogether because the book is 15, it would actually be 28, and then plus $1 for the extra, the larger sizes, or just $1 more, and that's just because of cost. Anyway, did everyone get the link to the Google form? So I want to make sure you guys can go there and get entered for the drawings. And check, make sure everything's going okay. Yeah, it looks like 6 of you have gone over there and filled it in, so good. Do you guys want to hear the rest of chapter 1? Well, I'm going to read it whether you want me to or not, because I'm a rebel. So there is another important character. Let me come, Nicolette Howe's mother didn't even look up from where she kneeled on the worn, dusty floor, shoving a first aid kit into her pack. No, Nick. Nick's finger curled so tightly her fingernails dug into her palms. Outside, the Mississippi River roared past the old mill. A ferocious monster that threatened to gobble up the innocent. Please, I can fight. The desire to fight blazed in her blood, a fire that had been there since the day she was born, that danced to the beat of her heart. Every inch of her screamed with an internal battle cry. Arcadia must fall. Mom's hands froze over her bag, then she heaved a sigh, snapped the pack closed, and stood to face Nick. You're my child. Mom cupped Nick's face in her hands. I can't do this unless I know you are safe. Nick jerked it back from the tender touch. I'm not a child, Mom. Children played with toys and went to school. Most children didn't grow up as outlaws, living in the woods and abandoned homes, hunted by elite night and day. Nick knew more about shooting guns, physical fighting, and how to survive alone in the woods than any child would, or really should have to. But a child was exactly what Mom and the others in the family, the rebel group she and her mother had belonged to since Nick was a toddler, treated her like. The whole time they had been planning this attack, they would only talk about it when Nick was off collecting firewood or was supposed to be sleeping. But she would only close her eyes and pretend to sleep, listening to their whispers, dreaming of war. If this worked, when it worked, Nick forced herself to think, it would change everything. Rogue had once been so powerful that the rebel organization had nearly brought Arcadia to its knees. But for over a decade, the heretics in Rogue had only focused on survival, but not anymore. Now, they rose. Mom groaned. You're 13 years old. Almost 14, Nick argued, nails grinding deep into her palms. Nicolette, I am not having this conversation with you anymore. Nick winced. Even without the sharp edge in Mom's tone or the hands planted on her hips, Nick knew there was no more pushing her. Once the name Nicolette left Mom's lips, it was over, unless Nick wanted to sit in the chair position for an hour. Still, Nick crossed her arms and huffed in defeat. She cast her eyes to look at the 10 others, who were equally involved in preparation, carefully packing the weapons that would change the world, holding them as tenderly as a baby. Paul looked up from loading his gun and winked, his quick smile a flash of white against his dark skin. Nick tried to smile back, but couldn't manage to keep it on her lips. Everyone in the family, everyone in Rogue had their own reason to fight. They fought for faith, for freedom, for the hope of a different world, and for husbands, Oliver and Wyatt, for the love that Arcadia told them was wrong. They fought because they dared to be something different than what Arcadia told them to be, and that made them heretics. And Nick had more reason to fight than her faith to fight. She twisted the watch that dangled on her arm, meant for a much larger wrist, her father's wrist. Mom tapped Nick's cheek to get her attention. Now tell me the plan. Nick rolled her eyes and repeated it like she had a million times before. She would wait and pray until not a minute past 5 p.m. today. If all went according to plan, the family would return by then, and they would all escape together on the boat that they had carried them to this abandoned mill an hour outside of the Twin Cities. If they didn't, Nick would leave on her own and flee to another rebel group for safety. But that won't happen, Nick told herself, because they were coming back. But Dad had promised to come back too, and he hadn't. After the elite shot Dad during a supply run, Paul had returned alone and pressed Dad's antique watch into Mom's fingers. It was 3 years ago, and sometimes Nick could still hear Mom screaming. Nick gripped her wristwatch as the group swung their packs onto their backs. Nick hugged them goodbye, Mia and Oliver and even Zahid. When he pulled back, Paul pulled playfully on Nick's blonde ponytail. Remember, he said, what his eyes but cannot see. The eyes of our enemies when we come for them, Nick replied with a small smile as she gave the answer only a member of Rogue would know. That's my shoulder. Nick turned to Mom as the others filed outside, and her mom pulled her into a hug. Nick wanted to be stiff, to be mad, to punish her for leaving her behind, alone. But Nick found herself clinging to her instead, never wanting to let go. Please come back, Nick wanted to plead. That would make her a baby, and she wasn't a baby. Finally, Mom released her and put up a stern finger. Remember, 5 p.m. Yes, Mom. Nick watched them enter the trees, disappearing into the darkness and the fog, and kept staring long after they were gone. Now, hours later, Nick had paced the floor of the mill so many times he automatically leaped over the broken boards, praying for their protection, glancing at her watch every few minutes, counting down to the time when the world would change. Finally, the long hand met the top of the hour, and Nick's heart pounded even louder. The cleansings should be beginning soon, and if all went according, should be beginning now. And if all went according to plan, it would end very soon. End of chapter 1. Alyssa, you should read the book again. I've read it like a bunch of times, but that's just part of the writing process. So let me ask you this for Alyssa and Jamie, if you guys are still with me. Let me ask you a question for those of the people here who haven't read the book. Who was your favorite character and why? And then I'll tell you my answer. Val, that's an interesting. And spanking. I kind of wonder her spunk. That's really cool. I love that Val is your favorite character. I always kind of worried about her because she's I had a few early beta readers who didn't like her very much. So I was always worried because I particularly love her, and that's a really good thing because she becomes a point of view character in book 2. So not to give too much away, but yeah, I'm excited that you like her. What about you, Alyssa? Are you still with me? Who is your favorite character? Yes, there's a lot more to Val than what you've gotten to see. Definitely. And it'll be really fun to get to explore that character a little more. But I'm glad that you loved her because she's definitely adds a dynamic to the first book that I absolutely love. Yeah. Yeah, Shiloh's I love that you could relate to her. She's really cool. So for me, it's hard to have a favorite character because it's really hard to choose. I can definitely say that the 2 characters I love writing the most is I love writing Jake because he's fun and he's sassy and snarky, and I'm a pretty snarky person myself. So being able to put that snark in people, and probably for the same reason, I really love writing Stefani. She is the funnest character to write, and I love her a lot. Just writing her and her craziness and her yes, Jake is very naive. He does have a lot of growth that he needs to do. I totally agree with that. But it was also like important to me to write a character, particularly a guy character, who wasn't perfect, because I feel like we get that too much, especially in young adults, that I wanted him to have very clear and obvious flaws. But I still wanted him to be a decent guy, because showing like a healthy relationship between 2 people was really important for me. I think a lot of the times young adults, we because I feel like sometimes they don't always get the healthiest example, and I think it's really important for a young adult, especially like in the teenage year, to be able to see that. yeah, so you can see the growth. I'm good. Yeah. It's so fun to like look at where they are now and know that it's a series and kind of know where they end up and see the trajectory along the way. It's like watching children grow up. So I feel like kind of like they're your children and you're watching them grow up, and so it's really cool. And it's really cool to hear like readers talk about that and be like, yes, like I clearly what I wanted to get across got across. And that's a pretty cool feeling. Like, I never went into this thinking that I'm going to make a career out of this, to be honest. Like, I love my nursing career. I'm always going to want to do that. But just being able to, share these characters with people and share my message, and just even getting the 10 reviews that I've had on Goodreads has meant the world to me. And hearing, like, hey, like this is making people think, this is sticking with people are loving my characters, they like my characters feel real to them. It's an indescribable feeling. It's really, really great. And I can't wait for more of you to read it and to tell me what you think, and even give me feedback on how to do better in the next books, because I've gotten that too, and that's super helpful for me. And Becca, thank you so much for coming. I can't wait to hear what you think about it. Yeah, make that sister of yours give you the book. She's already read it, so and she went home with a copy today. So, all right. So who all is still on here? Give me a shout out. Jamie. Hi, Brooklyn. Are you going to read the book too? Aha, good. And then you'll share it with all your friends, right? Oh, good. I remember that homeschooled life. Are you just homeschooled because of COVID, or have you always been homeschooled? Yay, Alyssa, you're still here with us. Awesome. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I was homeschooled for middle school on, and I still did pretty well. I mean, so I understand that a few friends outside of the home thing, but it's not the quantity of friends, but the quality. So that's always what really matters. But that's exciting. I'm really eager to hear what you think, if you like it like your mom liked it, or what. Oh no, I'm sorry, Alyssa. Thank you so much for coming. I will thank you. Oh, if you have reviewed on Goodreads but haven't reviewed on Amazon, now that it's out, please make sure that you copy that review over to Amazon so that those numbers count on there, because more people are going to see it, and then it helps with the algorithm there. So that's really helpful. If you could do that, it would be a huge favor to me, and I would be forever in your debt. Not that I'm not already, but I would really appreciate it. Yeah. Sometimes homeschooling is, the best option for the kid. It's you who has to decide what's best for them. Yay, Jocelyn, you're still here. I'm glad that you guys are still here. You guys are running the show, so you tell me. Do you want me to keep reading? Do you want, what do you want? Bye, Alyssa. Thank you again for coming. Brooklyn says read. Well, Brooklyn is the boss right now, so I will keep reading. All right, so chapter 2. The trumpets flared and the anthem played as Samuel Osgood made his way to the stage. Make way for the king. Jake and his mom followed close behind, surrounded by bodyguards. The crowd rose to their feet, applauding, smiling, cheering. Only the first few rows of the huge church were filled. Later, when the mandatory live viewing aired, it would look as though adoring fans were packed into every seat. But only the most trusted were here. Counselor Beck and her family and state advocates, people who would remain loyal to the cover story if things went awry. The back of the stage boasted a hologram of the Arcadian flag, a blanket of red and blue with a white olive branch forming a circle around joined hands. Jake and his mom took their place side by side in front of the hologram while Dad approached the glass podium. My dear Arcadians, his voice boomed into the microphone, and the crowd fell silent. In my father's time, this land we stand on was called the United States, but we were anything but united. Son of a blight, Jake bit back a groan. Here we go again. They were torn apart by political parties, religions, race, opinions, and sexuality. Dad gave a little shudder. These things led to terrorism, and terrorism led to a great civil war, blah, blah, blah. Jake had heard this speech so many times he could give it himself. Before Arcadia, people couldn't get along, so they did what people did, killed each other over it. Cities were destroyed or abandoned because of chemical attacks. Some people fled the country, while many others, those who stayed, didn't survive. A nation was dying, hemorrhaging because they couldn't get past their own differences. Then came the devastation that ended it all, the reckoning. The Sons of David, a Christian terrorist group, dropped a bomb on the former capital. The initial explosion had wiped out half the government, who had gathered for an emergency conference. The chemical bomb that had followed wiped out most of the rest. Jake's grandfather, the namesake, Jacob Osgood, had been the governor of Minnesota at the time. He, with Madison Beck, the former Speaker of the House, and 3 other highly positioned, trusted individuals, stepped up to fill the void, calling themselves the United Council. They advocated for a world devoid of differences, where true unity could be achieved. Other leaders had their own vision of the future, and to avoid more war, a treaty was made. In an event known as the Sundering, the former United States was split into 3 nations: Moravia, the socialists, Zion, the Christian nation, and Arcadia, the nation of unity and harmony and lies. So many lies. The United Council built the force-filled walls that divided the nations. They said it would protect Arcadia. After all, Moravia and Zion weren't exactly pleasant either. But in reality, it was to create a cage. Because after that, the council wrote the codex and then oversaw the Great Excision, assembling the elite to rid the nation of heretics who refused to conform. Hundreds of people have been placed in prison camps, working like slaves until their deaths. Of course, Dad made it sound so much prettier than that. Jake focused just as Dad reached the crescendo of his speech, and they named it And they named it Arcadia, his father said, with just the perfect inflection of pride, to signify that it would be a land of harmony and prosperity, where suffering and hatred were never known, and the only cost was freedom. In order to protect this peace, we must ensure the Codex is enforced. But what would peace and prosperity be without mercy? And that is why my father and the rest of the First Council created the cleansing. Every year, 5 names of previously condemned heretics are drawn, and they are given the opportunity to renounce their heresy and rejoin society. A cheer blazed through the crowd. Mom jabbed her elbow into his side, and only then did Jake remember to clap too. Dad held up his hand for silence and moved to his list. The name of the first heretics to be cleansed is Logan Olson. On cue, 2 heretics, 2 elite, masked in their jet black suits and helmets with dark visors, dragged a man down the aisle, a dark sack concealing his face. Pale limbed, thin as his skeleton, drowning in his brown prison suit, stumbled up the stage steps. From the other side of the stage, Logan's family climbed onto the stage, clinging to each other's hands, 2 elderly parents and a petite Annual blonde who was possibly his sister. The elite stopped Logan near the podium, turned him to face the audience, and ripped the sack from his head. His face reiterated the gauntness of his body, a skull with skin, all sharp lines and bald head. Logan's mother pressed her fingers to her lips, choking back a sob. Don't, Jake wanted to warn. Smile pretty. That's your role. Just smile pretty. Logan Olson, Dad said, you committed heresy against Arcadia by refusing to marry your assigned spouse, and instead ran away with a citizen of your own gender. This neglected your explicit duty to Arcadia to ensure the repopulation of the nation and to put the United Council and Arcadia before all others. A sour taste burned at the back of Jake's throat. He swallowed, and it went down like broken glass. Dad continued, Logan Olson, do you renounce your heresy and swear that you will obey the will of the Council and the law of the Codex? Logan spoke, but it was unintelligible. He cleared his throat. Yes, I swear. The crowd exploded in applause again, but Jake refused to join them. Was this really even a choice? The love that was an act of heresy had likely seemed worth it once, but after years of torture, starvation, and slavery, who could say no to mercy, even if it meant pretending an irreplaceable part of yourself wasn't real? No one had in all the years of cleansing. A wide smile carved into Dad's face. Then, by the power of the United Council, I pardon you of your heresy. With a swipe of the elite's hand, the electric handcuffs disappeared from Logan's wrists. His knees nearly collapsed, and then he bolted toward his family. They collided in a tangle of limbs and grateful sobs and kisses before being shooed off the stage by attendants. Then the next name was called Hope Haven. Jake's back stiffened. That name. How do I know that name? Jake studied the girl as she was led down the aisle, even as a soft murmur ebbed through the crowd. Jake knew what they were thinking. She was a Haven girl, a daughter of heretics. The council was so merciful to choose her when she'd been tainted all her life. When Hope Haven reached the stage steps, Jake's memory came back to him like a slap in his face. She'd been in his grade at Ardency, his school, a girl he'd never spoken to. But he could remember her, dark curls, umber skin, a pretty smile, but mostly the look of terror in her eyes 2 years ago. At only 15 years old, she'd stood in front of the assembly at her mandatory boarding school, Ardency, her crimes being read over the screeching loudspeaker. He remembered how he wished he could save her as a black sack slid over her face. And then she was gone. Until now. Next scene. The Haven family. It's time. Shiloh rose from the hard metal surface and started toward the attendant who stood in the doorway. Shiloh's legs wanted to wobble, but she forced them to steady. I am calm, controlled, and obedient. That was rule number 3 of being a Haven girl. Show Arcadia what they want to see. The attendant walked briskly, leading her through the maze of hallways. They arrived at the stairs backstage, just as the Olsen family stumbled off, a skeleton of man between them. And then Shiloh heard the name, Hope Haven. A shudder of excitement raced down Shiloh's spine. She let herself feel it for the first time as the attendant pushed her toward the stairs. This wasn't a joke then. This was happening. Breathe in, Shiloh climbed the stairs. Breathe out. The light on the stage blinded her, the colors of the Arcadian flag bleeding onto the wooden platform. When her vision returned, she found Jacob Osgood, the counselor's son, standing only an arm's length away, with sunglasses perched on his nose. Shiloh nearly rolled her eyes. Typical. How many times had she seen him, sitting on the block of the classroom, wearing sunglasses to hide his red eyes and swallowing aspirins like candy? He lived up to his reputation, the Prince of Arcadia, the reckless, womanizing party boy. Next to him stood the counselor's wife, Regan Osgood, and the counselor poised at the podium. Behind the royal family, protectors in their bright uniforms formed a line, and then, from the opposite side of the stage, two elite appeared, someone draped between them. A chill marched down Shiloh's spine. The elite's sole responsibility was to monitor, to prevent, and to punish acts of heresy. Their dark, reflective visors made them faceless. No one would know who they were. Anyone could be an elite. The elite stopped at the center of the stage and yanked the sack from Hope's face. The first real look at Hope sucked Shiloh's air from her lungs. With bones poking like knives from her ashen skin, Hope looked as though she might fade away. Her wild hair, that Shiloh had braided 1,000 times, was gone. Finally, Hope turned toward Shiloh and smiled, and that smile was still so beautifully, wonderfully her, that it seemed to erase the distance and the time between them. For a second, time turned back to 2 years ago, sitting at dinner at the Haven, mouthing words to each other and reading lips so Mother and the aunts couldn't hear what they were saying. Hope's mouth moved, shy. Shiloh took a step forward and then stopped herself. No emotion. Hope remained a heretic until she was cleansed, and Shiloh had to pretend to reject her as such. Instead, Shiloh mouthed, I missed you. Counselor Osgood spoke. Hope Haven, you committed heresy against Arcadia by possessing pages of a religious text. This violated your duty to ensure the unity of peace of Arcadia, as well as betraying your loyalty to the United Council, which should be above all others. Hope's smile slipped, and a fire danced in her eyes. 2 years in prison, and that fire still blazed. Hope Haven, do you renounce your heresy and swear to live according to the duties of an Arcadia citizen? Will you pledge that there is no God, there is only us? Hope dragged her gaze away from Shiloh and looked out to the crowd, her chin lifted high. Shiloh swallowed. Please, Hope. Hope turned her eyes back to Shiloh and mouthed, I'm so sorry. I love you. Shiloh's blood turned to ice. The counselor cleared his throat. Hope Haven? Hope jerked his head to look at the counselor, jerked her head to look the counselor straight in the eyes. Please, Shiloh wanted to scream, please don't do this. But she did. No. The counselor recoiled. I'm sorry. What did you say? I said no. The whole room caught its breath. The counselor stared mutely. This was not how the script went. Hope took advantage of the silence. I do not renounce my heresy. I am done conforming to Arcadia's ways. You can send me back to prison, or you can kill me like you. Shut up, one of the elite barked, driving his prod into Hope's back. As the electrical current passed through her body, she jerked and fell to her knees. Shiloh sprang forward, every inch of her screaming to come to Hope's aid. A hand seized her wrist, yanking her back. She turned, and a pair of warm brown eyes met hers. Don't, Jacob Osgood hissed, low enough that only she could hear. They will kill you too. Shiloh whipped her hand away, heart pounding in her ears, but he was right. Rule number 1, She stayed, but jerked her eyes back to Hope, remained on her knees, gasping through the pain. You can kill me, Hope continued, like you killed my parents. But you will not decide how I think or believe or who I love. Shut up, Shiloh wanted to scream. Hot tears stung the back of her eyes, but she didn't dare let them fall. Please shut up. But Hope's voice only grew louder. You wanted to create a world with no differences? Ha! The stick jammed into Hope's side again. This time she shrieked in pain, and the sound echoed in Shiloh's bone. Enough, the counselor barked. Get her out of here. The elite seized Hope's arms and dragged her toward the edge of the stage, still on her knees. She refused to be silent. You just decided which differences wouldn't be tolerated, wouldn't be accepted. This isn't accepted. This isn't all. The elite's fist slammed in her throat, and the gas that escaped her mouth scraped like saw blades down Shiloh's spine. Even Jacob Osgood shuddered. She didn't speak after that, and the elite got her to the steps. This can't be happening. Shiloh couldn't be watching them take her away. Again, within her, everything wailed in agony, but Shiloh closed her eyes, forcing herself to remain blank. Rule number 3, breathe in, breathe out. Counselor Osgood, a voice boomed from the audience. Counselor Beck, the only other counselor present, surged to her feet from the front row. She spoke steadily, but her eyes crackled with flames. You know the protocol for refusal. The elite froze. Hope landed, crumpled like a doll on the floor. Counselor Osgood stared at his fellow counselor and then at the girl, with her face pressed to the wood, but it didn't speak. Counselor Beck snorted and crossed her arms. Elite 767, do your duty. The elite nodded. He yanked Hope onto her knees and drew his gun from his hip. Then Shiloh understood. This was no longer a cleansing. This was an execution. Shiloh launched herself forward, but Jacob Osgood flung his arms around her waist, holding her in place. She thrust her elbow back, hearing an oof as the sharp point connected with his ribs, but he didn't release. Stop, he begged against her ear, yanking her tightly against his firm chest. I'm sorry, but you have to stop. From across the stage, Hope met Shiloh's eyes and shook her head. Shiloh froze, a wail rising from the depths of her, but she clamped a hand over her lips to keep from making a sound. Silence blanketed the room until only one noise became clear. Hope was singing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Then the elite pulled the trigger. Should I torture you and stop there, or should I read chapter 3? It's very short. Brooklyn, you're running the show. What do you think? Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Read. Okay. I'll read chapter 3, but that's as far as I'm going, so you'll have to talk to your mom about reading the rest. Chapter 3. Time slowed. Shiloh's knees surrendered and she collapsed, only Jacob Osgood's arm keeping her upright, even though he, too, trembled. A long, single tone squilled in Shiloh's ears, like every nerve in her body screamed out in pain, until she heard no other sound, only saw a flicker of disconnected images. Counselor Osgood clinging to the podium, Mrs. Osgood covering her scream with her hands, the crowd scrimmering around, murmuring like rolling thunder, and blood, so much blood, trickling toward Shiloh's feet. Then, boom! From the corner of the stage, flame exploded upward, shooting wood like bullets through the air. Shiloh flung her arms over her head. Jacob Osgood stumbled backward, towards the stage's edge, pulling her with him. Someone screamed, down, down, down! A body hit the counselor, another his wife, and they tumbled from the stage. A protector started toward Jacob Osgood, but it was too late. Jacob Osgood and Shiloh fell from the edge, just as the stage exploded beneath Shiloh's feet, and the air ignited with flame. End of chapter 3. Anything more, and you'll have to read the book. Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. It was fun to get to read it. Chapter 2 is probably one of my favorite chapters to read out loud because it's pretty intense. Jim, I'm glad you guys are still here. I hope you're enjoying. What other questions do you guys have for me? I have about 10 more minutes, 10, 15 more minutes that I'll stay on unless a ton of people join, and then I can stay on a little longer. Oh, Derek. That's sad. Your internet is killing me. The projected release of book 2 is late May of 2021. I'm hoping that, oh, Jocelyn, I'm sorry. So many tears. What is it? Train of thought. Okay. I'm like halfway through the rough draft now. I'm hoping with NaNoWriMo, I will finish the rough draft by the end of this month. That's the goal. And then I'll have some brief stuff that I need to work on already, I know, in the rough draft before it goes to beta readers. And then I'll be searching for beta readers and getting it out. And I think last time I did 2 rounds of beta reading and then went to like copy editing and stuff like that. So that's the plan. Yeah. I think it should go a little smoother than this time did just because everything was so new and I didn't know what I was doing, but I have a lot of groundwork already laid for this book. And like I said, I'll start teasing after and give Heresy a couple weeks, and then I'm going to start releasing things like the title of book 2 and yeah, stuff like that. It is going to be exciting. I think book 2 is better and more intense than book 1. So brace yourself, Jamie, because I know you found book 1 pretty intense. Book 2 is worse. It's much, much worse. Oh, how I have time to sleep? I don't sleep very much, to be honest with you. I sleep like very, very little. I have really bad insomnia. But I don't know. I don't really, and people ask me that all the time. Like, how do I do what I do? I'm like, I just stay busy all the time and I stay organized. I love to write to-do lists, and I've gotten pretty good at being like, okay, I absolutely have to do this today. This I can put off tomorrow. I also do a lot of writing sprints, which have been my help. The members of the Fearless Writers are really great. That's the writing group that I started and now has grown bigger. And we do a lot of like writing sprints and stuff like that. And, you can sit down and write 600 words in 20 minutes. Not all of them are great. And I'll have to do a lot of editing around too, but I'm getting it on paper. And really that's what I need to do right now. Yes, I am a nurse and I'm a teacher. I actually teach for 2 different schools. I teach pharmacology in a nursing program, as well as a capstone. And then I'm a clinical instructor at another school for at least this semester. Starting next semester, I will only be a full-time professor at one. So that will help me with the process of writing the next couple of books as I'll kind of scale back. Except that I'm also going to start working on a post-doctorate certificate. So technically I'm kind of going back to school. So technically that's going to take the place of it. But I've been in school for 10 years. It is what it is. I don't know, just I have the mentality that that I can do it, and I'll find a way to get it done. And sometimes I freak out, and sometimes I feel overwhelmed, but I find a way to make it happen. I just have a lot of faith in myself and my ability to persevere. Good night. Yeah, thank you, Jim. I will get it in the mail soon. I totally promise. I'm sorry that I missed your package and getting it sent today. I'm so sorry. But I will get it sent out as soon as possible, and it shouldn't take too long to get to you, I don't think, since you're in Iowa. Have a good sleep. Yes, Jamie, I'm very aware that I'm quite insane, and I'm okay with it. What other questions do you guys have? Jamie, what was your favorite part of book 1? Without giving spoilers, if you can refer to it later, you can tell me what your favorite part of book 1 was. Yeah. Well, I'm in Missouri, but where they live in Iowa is only actually a couple of hours from Kansas City. So I think it's only a couple hours from Kansas City. So it's not too far. They had thought about coming to my event today, but they did not make it down there for personal reasons, and I totally get that. I was just honestly flattered that they even thought that they were going to come in person to it. So, anyways. So from here, what's my next? Oh, that's cool. It's a good moment. Oh, I made you cry a lot during this book, didn't I? I should not get such satisfaction when like readers cry, but I do, because it's just like, oh, you felt what I felt. So it means a lot that I can move somebody like that, and that they care that deeply for my characters. So that means a lot, and thank you so much for your support, Jamie. You've been like cheering me on since day one, and it's meant a lot to just have people in my corner. Yeah, I'm enjoying the ride. So what's next? What are plans for the future? With Heresy, we'll obviously just continue marketing. This is just day one of the book being released. I plan to reach out to the library systems to yeah, Derek, I agree. It means I did them. But I'm going to reach out to local library systems of the Mid-Continent Library and see if they will hold books. That's a local thing here. Ways that you can help me if you want is you can reach out to local libraries in your areas and request the book. If they get enough requests for that particular book, they're likely to order it and then hold it in their books. And that helps a ton, because as it's a series, like anytime that it can get out there, it's more likely people will look forward to the next book. So that's a great way to help. If you guys are interested in doing that. I did learn last night that there's a store, and I'm not sure where it is. Thank you, Jamie. There's a Barnes & Noble, I'm not quite sure what state it's in, that somebody from my Instagram page works there, and he actually requested 2 books. So Barnes & Noble is actually going to have 2 physical copies on their books, which is like a total dream control. I'm like, you have to send me a picture, because I have to see my book on a Barnes & Noble shelf, because that will be so awesome. So I'm planning to continue to work with like local Barnes and Nobles to see if I can do readings, as well as independent bookstores to see if they'll put my book in theirs and do readings. So it's a lot of kind of groundwork and hitting the dirt running and stuff like that to see what that I can do. The local library system here actually has a writer center, and I have a friend who works there who's going to see if that supports local writers, if I could go and do a book fair with them. So that's another thing that's in the future. So there's a lot that's going to be going on with this book. And then yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've had a lot of requests for an audiobook. So I'm actually really strongly considering it. That doing an audiobook, and I probably will eventually work on that. I just have been focusing on getting it here, and then I might not focus on it until NaNoWriMo is over, so that I can focus on getting the rough draft of book 2, and then that will probably be the next project that I undertake, is getting the audiobook going for Heresy. Because I've had so many requests, and I definitely want to get it open to those people who are more the auditorio type and want to read the book. So I'll definitely start working on that. Kind of nervous about it because I have to like hire somebody that I trust to bring my characters to life, because I'm not going to read it. I think that I know that Audible has like a service that they use like professionals, so I'll probably reach out to doing that eventually, which means, Derek, I'm going to be asking you a ton more questions about it since you've just went through this process yourself. I had another question here. Brooklyn wants to know if you cry while writing. I don't think I ever cried during Heresy. I know during early drafts of book 2, which completely got thrown in the trash, but I will revisit some of that. I did cry there are a couple of things that made me cry. Whether or not those scenes get put in there, I don't know. I don't know, but yes, occasionally I have cried. It takes a lot. Most of the time I get like choked up, but it takes a lot to make me cry. I can be pretty emotional without actually crying. So other books make me cry a lot more than mine do. Maybe because it's been in my head for so long. Like when generally when I bring it to life, I don't get as caught up into it, whereas like other books can like take you by surprise because you didn't see it coming. So I'll definitely cry with movies and other stuff. I also avoid writing things that are like in Heresy, that are really super, like I've talked about, it's kind of like themes personal, but are like experienced things that I've really experienced closely. Whereas there are a few short stories that I've written that are based on things that I've experienced in my nursing career, for example, and those I bawled when I wrote them because it was kind of opening a wound, but it was very cathartic. So I guess I can't say that I did it. Just sometimes. It just depends on what I'm writing. I don't miss my characters yet because it's a great question. I don't miss them because it's just one big series to me. I am sure when I say goodbye to the characters at the end of the series, I will probably be a mess. But and it probably in a good way too, because I'll have finally gotten their story down and their story told. But yeah, I can imagine that I would, but right now I have 3 more books, so I don't really have the opportunity to miss them because they're still yelling in my head, telling me to sit down and write already. So this is just the beginning for them, really. And there's so much that happens from here. That's my happy birthday for Heresy balloons back there, by the way, if you've noticed them. I had another bunch of them, but I had some young relatives come at the very end of the party, and they kept eyeing the balloons, so I gave them my whole other batch of balloons. They took them home. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with all those balloons anyway, so I just kept my one batch. And this is my beautiful poster over here, movie poster that I had displayed that I don't know what I'm going to do with because I have nowhere in the hall. It's probably going to go back to my front window, actually. That's where it's been hanging out for the last few days, and I'm probably going to prop it in my front window so everyone who drives by can see it. But yeah, it's fun. It was fun to play around with the flames. Oh, I'm obviously in my Heresy room. Yeah. This is my downstairs area. So those are all my bookshelves, which have, right now all my Heresy books are up, but those I just put there for display. But as you can see, there's also, that's Legolas, one of Legolas's swords. I have the other one around here somewhere. I don't know where we put it. There's pictures, there's little Harry Potter plushes. You can't see me right there. And I can't move out of the way because it's a carpet floor, so I can't slide this chair enough. And then right behind here is my sewing machine. You can't see, and I have all my like crafting supplies everywhere in this space. So it's my space, my creative space. It's also supposed to be the most quiet in the room, but the dogs haven't actually cooperated that because this is also their play area. But I should create a Heresy room. That would be totally fun. Just like a whole room, just all my Heresy stuff. Get people to like draw fan art and put it up on the walls. That'd be pretty cool. I think I'd like that. What other questions do you guys have? I've been loving you got the questions that you've had. It's been really good. Ooh, do you do fan art, Brooklyn? That's exciting. She's all about fantastic. Well, I bet her fan art is fantastic. Robin wanted to come say hi again. River's been good. She's still sleeping on my lap. Don't put your head on your sister. All right, well, as Gotcha Life. Where do we go to get shirts? You let me know and I send you one for now. Apparently, someone's going to teach me how to set up an online store, but I haven't done that yet. But for now, you can just, you know where to find me, Derek, and I'll send you one. PayPal me back some of that money that I paid you for your book. Have you been reading it today, Derek? I know you ordered the ebook. You're letting me know? Okay. All right. Well, I'll get in touch with you and you can give me your address and I'll send you one. Thank you for supporting that. I'm sure you'll look great in it. Alrighty, guys. You're waiting for the paperback. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. It is really pretty. For those of you, I'm not sure if you guys have seen the back, but that's the back. It's not really great on the camera, but it's all fire and sparkly and gorgeous. So I really love it. One day I will eventually release it in hardback. I just decided not to do it right now. But I will eventually release the books in hardback. Probably as a set when I get them all done. That's kind of the plan. All right, guys, I think I'm going to sign off for the night if none of you have any other questions or anything like that. If you want a signed copy or a t-shirt, in the meantime, just reach out to me on Instagram or wherever you follow me, and I will hook you up. Or if you want some more bookmarks, just let me know, because I'll just need your address and then I can put them in the mail. All right. You know where to find me, definitely, Jamie. Thank you guys so much for attending. It's been a great night and an absolutely fabulous day. It's been like Christmas morning. Christmas Day. I swear, it's just completely and totally magical. And I can't thank you guys enough for your support. All right. Bye, guys. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming.